Of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Joe Biden gave a speech today. Clearly, and this is. I love Joe Biden. I voted for him. Big fan of his. Was not my first choice, to be clear, but enthusiastic in having him in the White House. He should have stayed in bed today. Should have stayed under the covers. Got some chicken soup. Something. Clearly had something going on. A little congestion, little cough. He said he got it from the grandson. Don't care. Should have stayed. Should have taken the day off. He should get a day off, as every working person should get a day off, and with pay as well. But here's the thing, and I've watched Joe over these last several months, and I'm happy with the policies. The country's moving in the right direction. Good stuff is happening, but he shouldn't be giving these speeches. This is something that he should never be given long prepared speeches. He should be out there doing what Joe does best. Look, he's not Obama, and he's not Clinton either. Obama wasn't even Clinton. Joe is best when he's being Uncle Joe, man. Make the occasional gaffe if you have to, but the poor reading, the squinting, the stumbling over words, all that does is give the haters stuff to focus on. This way they can ignore all the stuff, the good stuff that's going on, and focus on, look at him, he can't read. Yeah, he's an older guy. I get it. I squint too. I'm thrilled with where we're heading. We're going in a good direction. Job numbers out, an extra 210,000. Not what we were expecting, but it isn't a massive loss like we had last year. 6 million jobs created since January. That is a good record to run on. 4.2% unemployment. We're down there. We're moving in the right direction. Things are looking in the right direction. Reuters reported today, new orders for U.S.-made goods. Stuff we make here, folks, with that Made in America label that I love so much. Increase. Big increase. In fact, Reuters reported new orders for U.S.-made goods increased more than expected in October, and business spending on equipment appeared to rebound after a decline in the third quarter. Things are moving in the right direction. Orders, they said, increased by 17% on a year-on-year basis. We're doing better than we did last year. Moving in the right direction. Growth in the U.S. service sector has reached new heights. In November, things are going in the right direction. Wages on that as well. They said in the service sector, this is the AP reported, growth in the service sector, where most Americans work, hit an all-time high in November, surpassing the previous record in October. People are working. Wages in the hospitality and leisure industry up over 10% on the year. It's good stuff. We're moving in the right direction. And what I think's happening, and this is what I'm hoping we're seeing, is I'm hoping we're experiencing a fundamental shift in our economy, and a much-needed shift back to a worker-focused, a family-focused, community-focused economy, not one solely concerned on maximizing shareholder wealth, which is where we have been for the last 40 years. We've been in this place where we got to make the rich people richer, even if that means it makes the rest of us poorer. We've got to be standing with each other when things happen so that we all make our lives better. That whole thing, when the rising tide lifting all boats, that hasn't been so these last 40 years. What's happened is the boats have gotten bigger, and when the tide goes up, it just crushes the little ones. The little ones, that's you and me. That's we, the working people of this country. So today when Bernie Sanders tweeted out his support of the miners that have been on strike for, it's got to be 9 months now, The strikers at Warrior met Cole in Brookwood, Alabama. He tweeted, I stand in solidarity with miners at Warrior Met in Alabama fighting back courageously against Wall Street vultures who forced cuts to their wages and benefits. It is time we put the lives of working people ahead of shareholder profits. My sentiments, exactly what I have been saying for at least the last 16 years of doing this program. What's interesting to me, and again, it goes back to that Jay Gould quote, I could easily pay half the working class to murder the other half. Immediately and without fail, someone chimed in the comments, well, workers have they're shareholders too, don't you know? You're hurting the workers who are shareholders because they may have a 401k, they may have profit sharing, whatever, they may have something. Reality check, folks. And for the people who throw that out there, reality check. Come back to the real world where the rest of us live. The wealthiest 1% of this country, they own about 40% of all stocks. The richest 5%, they own about 70% of all stocks. You get to the 10% level, over 80%. That means the bottom 90% of us, virtually everyone listening to this program tonight, we only own about 19% of the shares of stock out there. That's it. About 19% of all stocks traded on U.S. markets. And the thing is, the closer to the bottom you are, the lower that number gets. To where if you're in the bottom 60%, you own about 2% of the stocks. So the vast majority of the working class owns virtually nothing in the stock market, has virtually no interest in what happens on Wall Street other than making the wealth gods happy. If we make the wealth gods happy, if we pray to the profit monster, everything's going to be okay because they're going to take care of us because they're benevolent. They're wonderful. And because of them, we can exist. That's what we're told. So it drives me insane when you see this stuff. And it got me thinking about that argument. Well, we own stock too. And I do. I'm not going to argue with a little some of it. I do own some of them. I've got a 401k. I've got some of that stuff. I've got pension, the things that I hope are going to be there when I get older. But the reality is, only about 56% of workers in this country participate in those workplace retirement programs of any kind. So you're talking about almost half that don't. And when you look at the numbers, the median amount in those 401ks is about 24,000. The median, is the balance, which represents the balance between the highs and the lows right there, the median. Most people have close to nothing. But 24.5, you can't retire on that. And in the old days, you spent 40 years working for a company. There was a defined benefit pension, which have been all but eviscerated in this hope that, and this training that's gone on in this country. And this is the thing that's really infuriating, because they want us all to believe, we're going to all be millionaires. We're going to all be millionaires. We're going to all have corner offices. It's going to be great. All you have to do is invest your money in Wall Street. And then every couple of years, they crash it a little bit and take some of it back. And it seems like they never lose, does it? And this is what's frustrating about this whole thing, because the working class of this country has been screwed for far too long. My grandparents' generation, when the economy took a nosedive, their pensions were still secure. And when they retired with a set amount. They knew what they were going to get. And it was part of the three-legged stool. You had your defined benefit pension, you had your savings, you had Social Security, and they lived out their lives with dignity and respect. And a lot of our grandparents did. The problem is two of the legs they've sawed off. The defined benefit pension is gone, completely gone. Wages have been suppressed and declining for decades. So your personal savings at retirement has gone down. And what the one leg that's left, Social Security, they're still trying to destroy. So for me, I come to this point where I'm going, yes, we need a fundamental reset of what our economy is and why we have an economy. At the end of the day, an economy is not to feed the wealth class and to make the uber wealthy even wealthier, which is what we have done throughout this entire pandemic. The reality is, from the beginning of the pandemic till now, you're looking at well over $2 trillion in wealth accumulated by just a couple hundred people, while the mass of folks are struggling just to get by. Now, look, there's a little bit of wage inflation going on, which is sending the rich people crazy. Because wage inflation is bad for them. That means less for them. And it's sending the shareholders crazy, which is why they've got the Fed going, hey, if wages keep going up, we might have to slam on the brakes on this inflation because we don't want wages to go up. I'm so sick of the mainstream corporate-controlled media telling us, all inflation's bad. The inflation's terrible. It's the end of humanity. To where whenever we hear the dreaded I word, we foam at the mouth. When the reality is we need a little wage inflation right now. We need wages to go up. We need the dignity of work to come back. And we need to tie our wage increases to our productivity again. And we do that how? Well, we do that by people being able to collectively bargain and demand those wages. Because as we have seen in this experiment, let's say neoliberalism, let's say supply-side voodoo Reaganomics, those were experiments. These were experiments. We've tried them for 40 years. We've tried neoliberal trade. We've tried supply-side voodoo Reaganomics, tax cuts for the wealthy. We've tried. They told us, hey, free trade's going to benefit everybody. Wages are going to go up. There are going to be more jobs. We'll consume more. It's going to be great. Rice and beans. The conservatives said, no, we're going to give tax breaks to the wealthy, and the wealthy will take the money because they're smart and they know what to do with it, and they're going to create more wealth. It's going to be great for everybody. And you go, well, who have both of those things been good for? Both of those things have been really good for the wealthy. Our CEO class has gone and run overseas where they can find cheap, exploitable labor. They've taken those tax cuts and they've shoveled them offshore into their tax havens. And they've bought politicians that have given them the ability to evade taxes altogether. And as we were told it was going to trickle down, it never did. The benevolence that we were told was going to be there didn't happen. And you don't have to take my word for it. There's some great imagery out there. My favorite being the graph from the end of World War II that shows the end of World War II to the middle 70s, as productivity went up, wages walked hand in hand. They were right there together. Why? Well, because 40% of the workforce was unionized, and they demanded the wages. But as soon as we started saying, no, the benevolent employers, the benevolent wealthy people, they're going to take care of us. They're going to help. So we don't need those stinking unions anymore. We trust our employer. They're such good people. What's happened? Well, we've seen flatlined and declining wages while productivity continues to skyrocket. And who hoarded the productivity gains? Well, our 745 certified billionaires. They were the ones who got a good portion of it. The top 10% of the country they're the ones who own the stocks. They're the ones who own all the decent land. They own all the big companies. They own all the shares of stock. They own this place. And our only way of continuing this experiment of self-governance is voting. And voting for people who aren't completely against us. And they're taking that. And not only are they taking it, one party's completely against the working class of this country. And the other one, they're kind of, sometimes we're with you. It's infuriating. And look, I love what Joe Biden's doing. I love the fact that he's talking about buying stuff made in America, bringing back manufacturing, building back better, and doing it with union labor. I'm thrilled with this, providing a safety net for people so that they can exist, getting some paid family leave so we can help families get forward. Yet the sad reality, Democrats can't seem to get out of their own way. Convening the circular firing squad, shall we say, and no one more No one more in the middle of that firing squad than Joe Manchin, who today, Joe Manchin has said he's going to be joining all 50 Republicans to back a resolution that challenges Joe Biden's vaccine mandate, which means that is going to go down. Now, here's the thing, and I've been saying this for a bit. I'm ready to go past it. I'm ready to say, fine, we're not gonna have to do this because it's only tearing us further apart. What's end up going to happen is, well, the people who aren't vaccinated, they're the ones who are going to be dying. Capitalism is going to figure this one out. They're the ones who are going to be paying higher insurance rates. They're the ones who are probably at some point going to have to pay higher copays and stuff with things related to COVID. And I'm okay with that. That's probably how we should have gone about this from the very beginning. Because it's like any 2-year-old. You tell a 2-year-old, no, you can't do that. What's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to go and do something. They're going to go and they're going to have a fit, and they're going to go do exactly what you told them not to. And if you tell them to do something, I got teenagers. Yeah, that's not going to. So I'm not surprised that we're in this place. Not surprised. So this is where, again, I think capitalism will decide. Manchin added that the federal government should incentivize, not penalize. And this is where I'm at. I'm with you, Joe. I'm with you. We should be incentivizing this stuff. And if that means, higher insurance rates you're going to have to pay, fine. That's what it's going to mean. Because we've got to get past this pandemic somehow, and we've got to do it soon. Because all of the good stuff that we're seeing, the good gains in our economy, the things that look like they're going in the right direction, the job growth, the wage increases, our supply chains starting to come around and doing some good things there. All of this progress can completely be shut down with a massive wave of whatever's next. And the good thing, what I'm hearing about this Omicron, is it may not be as deadly. It's twice as contagious. It spreads faster, but it may not be something that is going to kill us. And that's a good thing, I think. So I'm hoping there's light at the end of this tunnel, to where we can get back and moving in the direction of continuing to build on our economy, to continue to help move us forward and get the stuff done that we need to get done. It's that simple for me. Going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, going to talk to the guy who's running against Madison Cawthorn in North Carolina. I really hope this guy takes him out. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day a general strike erupted in Oakland, California. Workers, mostly women, had been on strike for a month at 2 downtown department stores. Teamsters honored their picket lines and refused to make deliveries. Infuriated owners of Hastings and Conn's demanded their merchandise and turned to the city for help. And on this day, police assembled early in the morning to clear the streets of picketers. They attacked strikers, forcing them off the street and setting up a perimeter of machine guns to escort scab delivery trucks through the line. One striker recalled, "I was black and blue for 6 months from their clubs." Outraged truck drivers, bus drivers, and streetcar operators all stopped, got out of their vehicles, and joined the strikers, quickly filling downtown Oakland. By the end of the day, the city was completely shut down. 142 AFL unions called for a labor holiday in support of the strikers, and now 130,000 workers were on strike in solidarity. UAW member Stan Weir recalled that it was the bus drivers, many just returned from the war, who led the strike. The streets that night had a carnival-like atmosphere. War vets led a march to City Hall to demand the resignation of the mayor and city council for their attempts to break the strike. The general strike quickly forced the administration to stop the scab herding. But local labor leaders were divided over what some considered a near insurrection and called the strike off 54 hours later. The retail workers were left to fight on their own for another 5 months. But for a few days, workers got a taste of their own power. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So John Eastman, remember John Eastman, the guy who wrote up that cute little memo on how Donald Trump could overthrow our elections and, basically throw out a couple hundred years worth of peaceful transitions of power. Remember that? Remember that, John Eastman? Yeah, well, evidently he has said he is going to plead the fifth. Because if he opens his mouth, he will absolutely, without question, incriminate himself. And look, I expect this a lot. I expect the hearings to be a lot of Trump people coming out and sitting in the chair saying, I plead the fifth. And I'm okay with that. As long as they put it on TV and we all get to see the thieves, the liars, and cheats pleading the fifth, I am okay with that. And one of those people I would love to see on the stand, well, a couple of them, especially those folks in Congress, but one of them, that Madison Cawthorn, I want to know what he did on January 6th. He was on the stage riling people up. I want to know what he did. I'd like to see him behind bars. But more importantly, I'd like to see him thrown out of Congress altogether. And I'm hoping the good voters of the 13th Congressional District there in North Carolina will do just that. That's why I've asked the guy who's going to be running against him in the next election to come talk with us. Josh Remillard is a veteran, father, husband, Democrat in North Carolina. Impressive, and someone who I do hope is taking out Madison Cawthorn in the next election. Josh, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh man, hey, thank you so much for having me on. This is certainly an honor.
So I'm looking at this, and I got to start right from the beginning. I have no idea how this guy gets elected to any position of authority, let alone to sit in the U.S. Congress. But I understand that he ran and carpetbagged to another district to get away from you the last time. Am I getting this right?
That's correct. It was mid-November. He announced that he was moving to the newly drawn district, NC 13. Look, I mean, he said plenty of reasons in his announcement video why he was going there. One was that he's trying to strengthen or bolster the conservative fighting spirit, or whatever that means. But look, the in all honesty, the district that we were in previously, NC 14, had been redrawn to the point where it became more competitive and it became easier for a Democrat to win. The district that he's in, that he moved to, District 13, that this was drawn so that it would be favorable to a conservative, to a Republican. So I mean, you call a spade a spade. I mean, if it quacks like a duck, and if it walks like a duck, it's got to be a duck, right?
So now I understand you're now going after him, which. Good on you. Follow him wherever he's got to go. And I watched your video, which I think, and we're going to put out on social media so everyone can take a look at. Touching, heartbreaking, and angering all at the same time when you think about the things that this guy has done over the last year and a half. Share with us a little bit about why you've jumped into this and why you think this is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say this just briefly. Like, I learned early that life is a fight. I mean, I was raised in the foster care system. I bounced around from family to family until my grandparents were able to adopt me. My grandfather was working for the State Department, and he and my grandmother were looking forward to traveling around the world and I guess you could say living out their golden years. But then they saw that I needed them. They found out that I needed them, and I mean they made huge sacrifices to take me in. And look, I mean even the jobs I held were fights. I worked on a tugboat. I worked as a piercer in a tattoo shop and as a bouncer. And then, of course, at the age of 24, that's when I enlisted in the Army to fight for my country. I was sort of milling about town in Wilmington, and started paying a little bit more attention to the news, and I started seeing the death toll rise in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I just ended up hating myself. Because I'm thinking, here I am trying to clip out, coupons to go to Hardee's and get a cheap burger. And these guys are over there fighting and dying for this country. And so I had like 1/8 of a tank of gas in my car, and I drove straight out to the recruiter. And I said, look, man, I don't want you to sell me on anything. Put me in the infantry, put me in the fastest deploying unit you can out of basic, because that's the fight that I need to be in. I did 8 years in the Army as an infantryman and 2 combat tours in Iraq. And look, when I was over there, I lost battle buddies, right? And when I was stationed in Germany, I met a really great guy. He was one of my best friends. And once they cased our colors of our unit in Germany, they sent us back to the States. He went to a different unit. His unit went to Afghanistan. I stayed in the States. When I met up with him after I got out of the Army, I mean, he just wasn't the same. He wasn't the same. He had a lot of scars. He was suffering really hard from PTSD because his unit had gotten ambushed in Afghanistan, and he blamed himself for losing his battle buddies and some of his friends. And, my wife and I did everything that we could. We brought him into our house. I took him out to the VA. I tried to get him help. And in the end, his demons got the best of him. Yeah, and he ended up taking his life.
And you're talking about your friend Bryce that you talk about in the video.
That's correct.
And I'll tell you, I grew up as a kid in the 1970s, watching them, the men come back from Vietnam and just being dumped into the housing project that I lived in. And with broken minds, broken bodies, missing parts, drug and alcohol problems, and just dumped like trash. And it was one of these things that I had hoped we would never see again. And yet I hear stories like the one that you're telling and others, and it's heartbreaking. And I wonder why we allow that to happen. So when I hear you say this is the reason, that one of the reasons I'm into this, I'm 100% behind you.
Yeah, he ended up taking his life. And you're right. The most heartbreaking, beyond him taking his life, the most heartbreaking time was, he and I were going through a Taco Bell drive-through, and he ended up just melting. He was crying, and he blamed himself for everything. And I stayed with his body until they took it away. And that's still an extremely painful memory for him. It hurts.
Can't imagine.
And all of that came rushing back on January 6th. I was sort of milling about the house, and I flipped on the news, and I was watching everything that unfold, and I remember just screaming at the TV. My wife comes walking in the house, and she's like, "What are you screaming at?" And I'm like, look what's happening to our country right now. Like, you expect this in other countries. This isn't what men and women died for to protect our country. So we had a conversation thereafter, and I said, look, babe, I can't live with myself if I don't get involved in this race. I fought and bled for this country. Men and women have fought and died for this country, to protect our Constitution, to protect our nation's capital, our friends and our family. No, I can't stand by while this guy spits on the sacrifice of everything that every other service member has fought for. I'm honestly tired of children like Madison Cawthorn, claiming patriotism. When in fact, I love this country. I love this country. And you don't have to be in the military to be a patriot, but that person is not a patriot. He's a fraud. Yeah. That's just it, flat out for me.
You were in the Army. You spent years as a gunner on a Humvee. When you see a picture of Madison Cawthorn and a video of him, joking that he's got a new attachment for his wheelchair, kind of imitating what you have done, what does it make you think?
Initially it makes you angry. But I realize that's just false patriotism. That's all it is. It's something to make himself look cool. It's a new toy. He doesn't respect the service and sacrifice that men and women have gone through for the past 200 years, 200 plus years of this country. He doesn't respect it. Guns to him are toys. They're accessories. It's the same as souping up your car for him. But he just drapes the flag over it. I know what that's like to put another person on the end of my knife sight and to have to pull the trigger. I know what that's like. And other service members know what that's like too. And it's not fun. It's not fun and games. It's not like Call of Duty. It's not like Saving Private Ryan. It's not like those movies. This is real life. And those of us that have served and have gone through that, we take that stuff seriously.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Josh Remillard. He is running for Congress in North Carolina's 13th Congressional District. The website, joshremillard.com, if you want to check out the site. Also, maybe make a donation, because all campaigns need money. If you got a question for Josh, we'd love to hear it. 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-6666. 7425. Now, after the Kyle Rittenhouse decision, Madison Cawthorn came out with a little video in his car saying that we need to be armed and be dangerous. And I got to tell you, I'm a defender of the Second Amendment. I think people have the right to bear arms, but I think there are a lot of responsibilities that should come with that. But I think that messaging coming out of that moment is not only irresponsible, it should be almost criminal on a certain level. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Look, in my mind, he's immature and he's a child. That's just all. That's all it is. This kid has gone through life with a silver spoon in his mouth. He doesn't understand the reality, the consequences to actions, the gravity that he has in that position, being a representative. He doesn't understand it. To him, it says it all. The fact that he has a comms team over having a policy team. For him, it's just about being famous, and he'll say anything that can trigger progressives, that can trigger the left, whatever. So long as he raises the hairs on people's back, he's fine, because then he's in favor with this with his golden god, if you will, Donald Trump.
No, and look, you have hit on something I've been talking about for a while. Sadly, too many in the Republican Party right now is it's all about reality star fame. It's all about, hey, look at me. What angle can I use to get attention? What can I do to raise my profile? They don't bring actual policy to the floor to pass legislation. They're not doing anything to make people's lives better in any way, shape, or form. It's just about them. And while, on a certain level, I'm okay, go play your games, it's not moving us forward as a country. And actually, you look at what he did and others on January 6th, and this is why I'm hoping the January 6th Commission puts these people under oath and sits them down and makes them say whatever. If they want to plead the fifth, fine, I want to hear that. But I want to know what these people did on January 6th. People like Madison Cawthorn.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I'll say this: when I took the oath of enlistment, I swore to defend the Constitution of this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'll tell you what, Madison Cawthorn to me has demonstrated that he's an enemy to this country, and it's imperative that he is held accountable for everything he's done since January 6th. There are policy platforms that are so important that Democrats all over the country are fighting for, that I care about, especially for NC-13. But in order to get those things passed, in order to progress and leave this world better for our children, we got to take someone like Madison Cawthorn. We got to take him down.
They got to go.
Yeah.
JoshRemillard.com. That's the website. Make sure you check this out. Now, we spent a bunch of time talking about just how bad he is, and he is bad. I mean, fortunately, he's not smart enough, in my view, to actually have policy chops, which on a certain level, I guess, is okay. He'll have his flash in the pan, I hope. But I want to talk about what you want to see. What policies are you going to move forth? It's one thing, I want him out, but I also want somebody in there who's got some ideas on how we move this country forward, because there are families that are struggling. There are kids that go to bed hungry. There are veterans who go to bed homeless. These are real things that need to be addressed. How do you go about that?
That's exactly right. And I'll start off by saying, when I got out of the Army, when my tours were up, I left the Army, but the Army didn't leave me. There was so much work to do back home. So I engaged with the community, and, I volunteered with Team Rubicon. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with who that organization or what that organization is, but they train veterans on how to respond to natural disaster and then to aid in natural disaster relief. So they actually got me my wildland firefighter certification and my damage assessment certification. And then they sent me off to Florida after Hurricane Michael to aid in disaster relief. So, I've always believed that if anyone says that they want to represent a community, lead a community, advocate for community, whatever the case is, then you need to be willing to get down on the ground with that community and lend yourself to that community. Yep. So for me, I want to first and foremost make sure that my brothers and sisters in arms are taken care of, that the VA is strengthened, that the hospitals, that the VA hospitals are improved, because they need to be improved at least to the same age as the rest of the hospitals out there.
As I understand, look, they're like 50,000 people short because the last administration did not hire anybody. So we've got some real problems on that vein. And the reality is they've allowed that to languish. He took a lot of credit for stuff he didn't do, but at the end of it, you were still 50,000 employees short at a time when the need is at its height. So last line of questioning I've got for you, because what's that issue that Josh Remillard goes, no, this is it. This is the important issue. Is it the veterans issue? Is it healthcare? Is it labor rights? What is Josh Remillard's hill that policy wise he dies on?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Veterans issues are very important, but the other thing too that I think that will help out veterans is strengthening our economy, because once we get out of the military, we become blue collar workers, right? We get back into the working environment and we start working again. So I want to continue strengthening our economy. I want to continue bringing jobs back to NC 13, to North Carolina. I think the infrastructure bill is a fantastic approach to helping rebuild our infrastructure, helping to secure our supply lines, and helping to secure the middle class.
Is most certainly something that we need to do, and I'm grateful we got that. I'm hoping we get something on the Build Back Better plan, and we do that with union labor and with good, solid union wage jobs for folks to be able to take care of their families. Josh, I appreciate the time. I wish you the best. I want you to come back early and often as this campaign heats up. I wish you the best, and again, I hope you come back.
Thank you so much for having me on. It certainly means a lot.
Good stuff. Appreciate it. Josh Remillard. Make sure you check out the website, joshremillard.com. We'll get links out on social media on how you can do that. And look, at the end of the day, the reality is Madison Cawthorn has to go. This is one of those moments where, sadly, we have let people into our halls of power who are, they don't live up to the expectations and the needs that we should have. This is where I'm frustrated. I look at him, I look at Boebert, I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, I look at these people who have nothing but contempt and disrespect for our halls of power and bring nothing to the table. And yet there they are, causing all this friction, all this chaos, and getting nothing done. And while nothing gets done, what happens? We still have people who suffer. We still have families who are struggling. We still have kids who go to bed hungry. We still have veterans who go to bed homeless. And we have people like Josh's friend Bryce, who not getting the help that they need and suffering with the demons that they have. And this is not who we are. So make sure you check out the website, joshremillard.com. We'll get links out on social media. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1833. That was the day that the Oberlin Collegiate Institute was founded in north central Ohio. Today, it's known as Oberlin College. The college was the project of two Presbyterian ministers, John J. Seifert and Philo Stewart. Their goal was to form a college based on Christian principles. In the early days, tuition was free and students were expected to give their labor to help sustain the school and community. The college motto, learning and labor, harkens back to that time. From early on, the college was different than many other institutions of higher learning of its day. In 1835, Oberlin became the first predominantly white college to admit black male students. 2 years later, Oberlin broke new ground again, letting in women and becoming the first co-ed college in the nation. By opening its doors to black and women enrollees, Oberlin gave these students a chance to study and pursue careers that might otherwise have been closed to them. By the turn of the 20th century, 1/3 of all black professionals in the United States had graduated from Oberlin. In 1862, Mary Jane Patterson became the first African-American woman to earn her bachelorette degree from Oberlin. She became a teacher and principal. Another black graduate, John Mercer Langston, would become the first black lawyer in Ohio and first black congressman to represent Virginia in Washington, D.C. Oberlin College was also known for its stance supporting the abolition of slavery and later supporting civil rights. The school was a stop on the Underground Railroad. which helped enslaved people escape into freedom to Canada. And to this day, the Oberlin community is still on the cutting edge of opportunity and change. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So there may be Rice Krispies for Christmas after all. Yep, it may happen. It may happen. It's not sure yet, but there may be Rice Krispies for Christmas, and I'll tell you why. Evidently, there has been a tentative agreement between the BCTGM, the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco, and Grain Millers Union that represents the Kellogg's workers and Kellogg's Incorporated. They got a 3% raise, I guess. Cost of living adjustments in the second through the fifth year, not bad. Doing something on the two-tier wage system. I'm not sure that that's going to be enough, but we'll see how the vote turns out. I understand that the next couple of weeks we should get some voting information, and that's why I say there may be Rice Krispies for Christmas, because after all, Kellogg does make Frosted Flakes and Rice Krispies, and as I've been pointing out on my social media, they've been sending the scab boxes out, so make sure you're checking for your union label. And look, it is. Well, it's Strikesmas now. We went through Striketober and then Strikesgiving and now Strikesmas. And that is continuing on. And, well, sadly, we see this strike going on out in what is western Pennsylvania. Workers at Erie Strayer have been off, I guess, since October 4th. And from what I'm reading, it doesn't even seem like the company wants to negotiate. I'm here to share some thoughts on what's going on there. I have asked Tracy Cutright to come talk with us. Tracy's the Vice President, Business Rep for Ironworkers, Regional Shop, Local number 851 of the Ironworkers. Tracy, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick, and thanks for having me.
That is quite a mouthful to get to Local 851.
Isn't it?
but hey, good things. Yeah. There may be Rice Krispies for Christmas. That's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I hope they get back to work.
So let's hope that their success and the success of John Deere and other places that we've seen trickles and hits you guys, because you guys have been out since October 4th. This is a fairly lengthy strike.
Yeah, we just basically finished week 10. So we've been out. We went out October 4th, and then we weren't even aware of what was going on in the rest of the country with like John Deere or Kellogg or whatever, but it was just like bam, bam, bam. And we're just a little shop local and kind of got caught up in this whirlwind.
Yeah, as I've been reading through this doesn't sound like a lot. Your requests, your demands don't seem all that strenuous. How is it that we're in this situation? I'm curious. I mean, because it didn't seem like you guys were asking for much.
No, we're not asking for much. It's this company. It's all about power. It's what, we wanted a dental plan. These men, long before I was representing them, wanted a dental plan. For the last two contracts prior to this one, they wanted a dental plan. And, the adage is what you didn't get last time, you ask for at the next table. And so we put dental, and the company's response is, we've never had dental and you're never getting dental. I mean, they drew the line in the sand basically the first full day of negotiations.
And that's one of those things that, I've been in negotiations like this in the past. That's one of those things that isn't even all that costly in the grand scheme of things. And it's something as an employer, wouldn't you want to extend to your workforce to keep them and keep them happy and to keep them around? It just seems like, I don't know, it would seem like good business to extend that kind of a benefit. Doesn't it? I mean, am I wrong?
You would think that it would actually help them recruit and retain, and we've made that argument at the table time and time again. It's like you need something to draw these workers in, and because they have a pretty good turnover because of their business model of working guys 7 days a week and treating them very poorly. So it's like you need this, and as you go on Indeed all through Erie, all these jobs they're offering dental, something that the Erie Strayer guys don't have. And it is not very costly.
Now I hear that. I hear that
And,
in a lot of places where they're talking about the hours, because you brought up hours, working 7 days a week, and this kind of, I remember reading in multiple books and places that labor fought for the 8-hour day. Labor fought for the 40-hour work week, and yet I keep hearing all of these places that are working 6, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, 12 hours a day, because you've got these employers who have just been abusing them. And are we at a moment, Tracy, where people have said, you know what? Yeah, I would have put up with it the year before last, but now not so much.
Absolutely. Now, the overtime is not mandatory at the Erie Strayer. I just get that straight. It's not. But in order to get the extras, because of the wages and stuff in the Erie area, to get the extras, they're sort of forced into working this overtime. The time and a half on Saturdays, the double time on Sundays. And it's just their business model, the company's business model, because of their production. These guys are, how would I put it? They're specialized. There's a lot of bottlenecks in that production of those mixers. So they need these guys. They're not cross-trained. One guy works on this particular part and he passes it down the line. And but yeah, the workers that's enough. Enough is enough. Ever since I've been representing these guys, they've been talking about this contract to me because they knew it was coming up, and we're here to fight for them. That's what they want. We work for them.
No, ultimately it was their decision. And look, no one.
Yes.
I've been on strike before as a worker, and I know what it's like. I know the sacrifice that comes with it. And I know the challenges. Look, no one wants to lose their job. Nobody wants to lose a paycheck. But sometimes you get pushed to that point to where there's no going back and there's nowhere else to go. And it sounds like the company kind of forced you into this by not addressing your main concerns.
Absolutely. It just felt like they were forcing us through a cattle chute all through the negotiations. Like I said, we started March 12th with this contract. We exchanged proposals on March 12th. And we had a lot of language stuff that we would pull something off the table. And it was like playing a game of Plinko. They would take a nickel and it would drop down through there and fall in one of these 5 years. And when we went on strike, they were offering 0 in the first year and 5 cents in the second year, like 10 cents in the third year. And we're in 6% inflation land, and this is what they were doing. And the guys, and every time we would have a meeting after every bargaining session, and it just made these guys resolve more resolved. So yes, this is, they knew it was coming. They worked for him. One guy on the line, 47 years with this company.
Wow.
So
I asked the same question of everyone. When a scenario like this pops up, how much of this is just hardball, negotiating tactics, or they want a strike so that they can end up breaking the union, hoping that more people will cross the line and end up getting rid of the union altogether?
Yeah, I guess we'll never know unless there's a phantom email or something. But it does seem that way, Rick. It absolutely seems like they're trying to break those guys' spirit and then eventually break the union. But that's not happening. My guys are very strong. We're a small group, but they're out there every day, in the rain and the snow and the mud. They don't care. They're fighting for, and one of the guys, he's been there 47 years. He could retire. He said, I'm on this line, not for myself, but for the guys that are coming in the door after me. And I have to take my hats off to them. They are union strong.
No, and that's a great message to hear, because I've been hearing that a lot lately. There had been a period of, hey, I'm going to get what I can get for me now. Now we're starting to see people, going, no, I want to leave something for my kids, especially, like the Kellogg strike. They want to get rid of these 2-tier wage systems so that, the next generation, they can have a good quality, family-sustaining union wage job to raise their families and help support their future. That's good to hear. I mean, that is great to hear that we're coming around back to that.
Yes. For years, and I've seen some of your clips and stuff. You talked about the Kellogg's with the 2-tier. Would you killing the unborn or something? Your phrase you used, and that's exactly right. You had the 2-tier wages. You've seen 2-tier vacation schedules, and that's not what these guys want. They want their successors to be in a very good union environment.
Now, one of the things that I give you credit for, Tracy, and your local credit for is you have made the social media around. You seem to be doing a really good job of doing what has to be done, and that's engaging the community and bringing people in. I see on your website that you got responses from the governor, Tom Wolf. You got responses from my friend John Fetterman, from my friend Sarah Nelson came out, and you had all of these folks, bringing attention to this, which I think is really important. What kind of response are you getting from folks outside?
Well, outside of the political specter, it's the city of Erie. Like I said, I represent 4 shops in Erie, as well as in Ohio and Pittsburgh area. But that city of Erie, I said, I had no idea the outpouring of support we would get from just the average citizen. It is nothing. We'll be on the line, and they'll just stop, open up their trunk, and start handing cases of water, pizzas, donuts, sandwiches. It's just incredible. But I just like to touch on it. Not only is it our local, but it's our international support we've got on this. So they're actually driving our media campaign and stuff, and they're doing an excellent job.
No, it's important. It's really important.
And I think I appreciate you saying that, because I'm impressed with them.
No, I mean, we've got to engage the community. There's an education process that goes with this. The reason I think it's so important that you guys are doing this is there's a community education process that's been lost. Generations past understood what a strike was. They understood what a lockout was. They understood why people were on the picket line. Now today, it's left up to the corporate media to tell them what it is instead of them knowing it viscerally. Our hope is, by this stuff, by what you're doing and what we do, the little program we do here, is to educate folks on, why someone's out on the picket line. And one of the things that I've been pushing for right now is this Adopt a Striker program. Go out and walk on the picket line with somebody. Just go out and listen. Take the master's class in working class economics and go listen and find out why they're there, the struggles, the trials, the tribulations, and how profitable these companies really are. So again, find a strike in your neighborhood. You can go to aflcio.org/strike, and they will the strike map, and they will find you a place. But again, I go back to this because the community is vitally important in putting pressure on companies like this, because ultimately the community buys their products. Yes.
Yeah, and like you said, Adopt a Striker, we've had people just show up. It's sort of a industrial / residential community, and we've had the neighbors just come over and ask for a sign that they could stand there with us. It's just heartwarming.
And that's what's important, bringing those folks together. Now I understand this Erie Strayer company, that they actually took some PPP money back during the pandemic. Am I getting this right? Because from what I understand, this is a very profitable company. They've gotten this money from the federal government. Did it? And I'm guessing it didn't trickle down, did it?
No. Unlike many of the shops during the initial. When the Governor Wolf declared the emergency, they declared our guys essential for day one, because they make concrete batch plants, and we need this for what's soon to be infrastructure bill. But they needed this, and so they were essential workers. They worked, like I said, 7 days a week. They did not shut the doors until we went on strike. 7 days a week, and they just basically took that $1.3 million and took it from their left pocket and put it in the right pocket. And it was like a welfare check to them.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, kind of, and you brought up the infrastructure bill, which I know your union and others are thrilled that we finally got through, because it's going to mean lots of work for your members. It's going to mean lots of work for this Erie Strayer company. And it's going to mean a lot of prevailing wage work, which means, as this money comes flowing through, this company's going to be even more profitable. So it seems to me that it would be, I don't know, forward looking to want to keep your valuable employees and give them a little something. And again, I look at what you're asking for. It isn't a lot.
No, it's not. And you would think that. I mean, the common man would think that they would want to settle this strike, get these guys back to work, so that, when their contracts come in for, the runways, they need the mixers, the dual mixers and stuff for, these bridges that they're going to pour. You would think that they would want to bring our guys back to work, but it's all about power, Rick. They want to dictate to the union. You're going to get a quarter an hour, which would be like 1.3%. That was their recent offer, was 5 quarters. They want a 5-year deal for 5 quarters with nothing else, no dental. And it's ridiculous. 1.3, and we're in 6% inflation. They want them to work for less than they did last year.
Yeah, that's crazy. and again, you look at this, and it's, as you pointed out, the inflation's going up, wages are going up everywhere. It almost sounds like they don't want to keep their people, which is, from what you've said, it's a specialized gig. You would think that you'd want to keep them.
Yeah, they're not plug and play. I mean, the management during negotiations, they keep, I don't know who they're trying to fool, but they try to act like they could just go get any Joe Blow off the street and bring him in and put that welding rod in their hand and put that thing together or assemble it. And that's not, it takes years to get up to speed on these projects.
Now, let me ask you this, because, it sounds like they're stuck in 2019. Because this sounds like something in 2019, and I don't know your organization or what your members would have put up with in 2019, but would this have flown in 2019? Would you have gotten this contract through? Or is it now that people are going, no, we're not taking that kind of mentality that's, here's a quarter and shut up and go away. The timing, I'm asking, is that the important part here?
No. Not with this group right here. I mean, yes, they were seeing the the changes in the prices and stuff, but well before 2019, they knew what they were wanting going into this contract, and they would not have taken a quarter in 2019, sir.
So, last question I got for you: what can we do to help? How can people help? You guys have been out on strike since October 4th. You've been negotiating since March, which is just ridiculous. What can folks do to help? What can we do to help push this along?
It's getting cold out there. So if they go to our website, eriestrayer.com, there's a link to a GoFundMe page. 100% of that money goes to the guys for the Christmas, for just incidentals for the families and stuff like that. We're trying to maybe get some insurance money. We're trying to work with the state to try to get some insurance because we didn't touch on it, but they did turn off the insurance. And I know I'm going to run long with you, but they illegally cut off the insurance on day one of the strike, which was against the law and against the contract. But you know how it goes.
Are any negotiations going on currently?
Pardon?
Any negotiations going on currently?
We negotiated this week. That's where we finally got them up to a quarter a year, and then we're going to negotiate again on the 17th.
Well, I wish you the best. I hope the next negotiation they wake up. I'm hoping people will put some pressure on them. Folks in the community, maybe call, email, do the social media stuff, all of that. But I hope your guys get back to work soon. One day longer, brother. I appreciate your time.
One day stronger. Thank you.
There you go. Good stuff. Tracy Cutright. Make sure you check out the website that they have, Erie Strayer. Strike.com. We'll get links out on social media how you can check that out. Also, their website, ironworkers851.org. We'll get those out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1916. That was the day that 7 Australian members of the Industrial Workers of the World were sentenced to 15 years in prison for their anti-war efforts during World War I. Other IWW members were sentenced to as many as 5 and 10 years each. The IWW had led the way in protesting the use of the draft, or what was called conscription, during World War I. On August 10, 1914, the front page of the Australian IWW newspaper, Direct Action, had declared war. For what? For the workers and their dependents, death, starvation, poverty, and untold misery. For the capitalist class, gold, stained with the blood of millions. Riotous luxury, banquets of jubilation over the graves of their dupes and slaves. An Australian wobbly leader, Tom Barker, had urged, let those who own Australia do the fighting. Put the wealthiest in the front ranks. The middle class next. Follow these with politicians, lawyers, sky pilots, and judges. Answer the declaration of war with a call for a general strike. Barker was arrested and jailed more than once for his stance on the war. In 1916, Australians had grown increasingly weary of the fighting. They voted no in a referendum on the continued use of conscription. That September 1916, the government raided IWW offices and arrested key leaders. The leaders were sentenced to long prison terms. 9 months later, the IWW was outlawed in Australia. The membership rolls were made available to employers who blacklisted anyone on the lists. Continued involvement in the IWW could result in 6 months hard labor in the work camps. This government oppression took a sharp toll on the union. But to its credit, the IWW still exists in Australia to this day.
It's time. It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. This hour, lots to get to, lots to talk about. What an interesting week, from almost having a shutdown for the new year to, well, we find out that the former guy almost got the new guy infected with COVID, to, well, we're going to evidently make abortion illegal again. So backroom death abortions may be something in our future. And, sadly, all not good. And here to share the week of news, I've asked our good friends, the panel, to come back and share some thoughts with us. Rich Ojeda from No Dems Left Behind, Sarah Burris from RawStory, and Laura Packard, stage 4 cancer survivor and healthcare advocate. Guys, thanks so much for being here.
Hello.
Good morning.
So what an interesting week we had. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, all of that stuff. It looks like we're not going to shut the government down. Rich, are you surprised?
Well, I mean, I know how the Republicans, would like to see this happen, because it basically will give them the ability to say, look at what the Democrats have done. But, nothing surprises me.
How about you, Laura? Anything surprising there?
Well, Mitch McConnell is the Grinch, so I am surprised that we're going to save Christmas.
And Sarah, any thoughts on? I was expecting at least a little, down to the last minute, the ticking bomb. If you remember the Obama years, they were, everything. They were like Kiefer Sutherland in that 24. Down to the last second, we're looking into the abyss, and finally, at the last second, they've extracted their pound of flesh, and now we can exist. I was expecting at least that.
Well, we got pretty close. You had Mike Lee throwing a fit on Thursday morning about how he didn't want to mandate vaccines, and he doesn't want to tell people to get their vaccines. So obviously he should shut down the government for that. And he had like 3 people who were willing to go along with him. So, it came close, but even Mitch McConnell was just like, yeah, no, we're not shutting down the government. Because even Mitch McConnell realized what a terrible PR move that would be for like 2 weeks before Christmas in the middle of Hanukkah. Let's just shut down the government.
Yeah, but I also think the reason how we have allowed people in this country to realize and know that the bills that need to be paid were 97% run up under Donald Trump and the Republican Party's reign. So, I mean, this is like the ultimate just horrible move for the Republicans to go with. So, yeah, I think it's great that people knew.
It's about time. Yeah. And it's just one of those things where you go, there was so much messaging going on around the shutdown. Like, well, we're going to stop the vaccine from happening. I'm going, this is the most Republican move ever. We're going to help make things worse by, because, hey, we're not going to help you, but we're going to make it worse by shutting off your ability to actually get the vaccine out the door and into the people's arms who want it.
And remember that Republicans are dying because of this. In these red states, Republicans are dying like 5-1, so you're killing your own base. But I guess if you're okay with that, 60,000+ people in Florida alone, yeah, good job.
And the other part of it is, in this moment where they're talking about inflation, they're talking about the economy not doing well, is this the right kind of talk to have in that moment? Or, hey, is the plan, hey, let's make the economy as bad as we can make it. Let's move in the direction to make it worse so that, Joe Biden looks worse.
Well, I think that, go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say, I think they're a little bit confused because they want the country to fail because they want it to fail under Joe Biden and they want to try and blame it on Joe Biden. But at the same time, when you have Democrats that are all on one specific side and Republicans who are very obviously, very loudly on the other side, I don't know how they can avoid tying the failure to themselves.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things where, again, nothing surprises me with Republicans do. But Laura, you got a thought on this?
Well, Mitch McConnell, aka the Grinch, his whole plan under President Obama was to stop Obama from doing anything positive for the country. That was his mission, and his goal was stop everything. And so it's not at all surprising that now they're rooting for the virus.
No,
but I also think that Joe Biden has been able to do some amazing things. They were talking about all of this stuff being backed up at the ports. What did Joe Biden do? He basically told these companies that for every container that sits at the port for more than 24 hours, you get a $100 tax. And what happened? Boom, things started moving again. He decided that he was going to release 50 million barrels of oil to lower the price of fuel. And boom, it seems like they have all these problems that they hope are going to blow up in Joe Biden's face, but he's hitting them out of the park. So go Joe.
No, that's what I love about him. I mean, he's getting up every day doing the job, and we don't see him on Twitter, tooting his own horn and causing chaos, just getting the work done. But at some point, Sarah, doesn't he have to come out and start swinging and say, look, you're pointing out all these problems, and we're dealing with this. You can't constantly be, the Nelly naysayer and do nothing to help and then expect things to get better.
Yeah, for a couple of elections ago, I remember us having the campaign against the party of no. That's what we kept calling the Republican Party. And people were really frustrated because basically government is slowed to a crawl, and you've got Republicans who are just the party of no. And so I think everybody needs to get around that message, including Joe Biden. And I appreciate his speech that he made about, his very reassuring speech about this is what we're going to do with COVID. And it was very much the Uncle Joe where everybody was like, hey, guys, it's okay. It's okay. My dad from Scranton, it's okay. And so it was that Joe Biden. And I need fiery Joe Biden to come in and be like, these guys are screwing up our government and they could shut down everything because they just want to.
Yeah, it's time to ball up the digits and start mixing it up. Laura, you want to jump in?
Well, that's something that Democrats have not always been great about, is pointing out the villains. But Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are fantastic at this, to pointing out who is to blame, because it is a natural human need to blame somebody when things are bad.
No, absolutely. And I know exactly who to blame, the last guy. Because he boogered it up from the start. And I love conservatives whining, oh, the economy's not doing great. We've created almost 6 million new jobs this year. The job numbers are getting much better. Wages are going up. Yeah, there's a bit of inflation, but I think that's going to, as they've been saying, over the next year or so, that too is going to recess a little bit. And I think we're going to be better on the other side, especially if we can get some things done to redo our economy, to rebuild our economy in a way that we start reshoring manufacturing, start producing things here again and creating those jobs and invest in this country. I think we'll be much better off.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of villains and inflation, I just read something from Popular Info and More Perfect Union talking about how a lot of the companies that are profiting from raising prices right now, they are raising their prices more than the costs of making these things as consumer goods. These companies are making bank because they feel like it's time that they can jack up the prices, and they're seeing record profits. And so that's some of who's responsible for these prices right now, too.
Now, I said from the beginning, this is good old-fashioned American greed and opportunism. This is good old-fashioned American capitalism at work here, folks.
They need to be called out for doing that. But once again, the Democrats need to also be willing to tell their victory stories. When Joe Biden does these things, we should be the ones that are screaming that the loudest. Thank you, Joe Biden, for releasing 50 million barrels of oil. Thank you, Joe Biden, for initiating attacks on these containers at the ports. Because of that, everything was stocked for Thanksgiving and Christmas now. So we got to toot our own horn too.
No, I think he's been doing a great job, and I'm happy so far. I'd like to get some things done quicker. I'd like the Build Back Better plan to move forward. I'd like to do something on voting, and a lot of things. But here we are in this moment. It looks like California won the Omicron sweepstakes. They were first. The next day, you now find out that Minnesota, Colorado are the runners-up. This is going to spread. I don't know how fast. I don't know how deadly it's coming. We've got to prepare for it. But what I find interesting is the state of Missouri. And this is one of those amazing kind of things that just infuriates me. But the state of Missouri, they did a study that said, hey, in the big cities that had mask mandates, they worked. It saved lives. It stopped people from getting COVID. And the governor there and the state government there squashed that report. And it was only made public because you had a couple of news organizations file sunshine law requests to find it. This is just nuts to me that we can't do common sense stuff like wear a freaking mask.
Oh, this is where we are now. This is the new Republican led states that we're dealing with. And the thing about the Omicron variant is, yeah, we're about to get it. It's about to be big. But guess what? Delta's here right now. And Delta will kill you. It will take you down. These people who've had the Omicron, the ones who are vaccinated, seem to be okay. Like there was one person that's already made it through it. None of those people have died yet. So I'm curious to see as it starts to spread if it is as bad as Delta. But Delta's here now, and we should be terrified of it.
Yeah, I've never been one of those people, hair on fire, it's the end of the world, everyone who gets COVID is going to die, but a percentage will. And if it's a 0.5% or 1 or 2 or 3%, that's a huge number in a country of 350 million people? Could be you, could be me. So common sense should be something like wearing a mask. I don't think too big of a deal.
Also, it's winter. It's nice to wear a mask. I'm cold out. It keeps you warm.
There is always that. Rich, you want to jump in there?
No, I'm just sitting here where, to me, people are dying, and Omicron is now here. And the thing about it, what they're saying is what you can do to prepare yourself right now is get your booster shots. 70% of the country is vaccinated, and those people are getting their booster shots. We have a good 30% that refuse to listen to science. And I'm at the point where, if you want to be that stupid, look, then don't fill up the hospital. There are places, other countries are now telling people that show up at the hospital with COVID to go home because they chose not to get vaccinated. Go home, good luck. At this point, I'm sick and tired of this garbage. We're never going to get past this until these people do the right thing. And either we make them do the right thing or we absolutely should make it to where they're not allowed to go anywhere. I believe Germany has just now basically said that if you are not vaccinated, you're not going anywhere. You can keep your butt at home.
But here's the thing, and this is what I've been saying for a long time now. Capitalism is going to figure this out because evidently we, through our government, are incapable of doing it because we're not going to hold people down and jab them in the arm. We're not going to throw them in jail. That's not who we are. But capitalism will figure this out. And I got a relative who was just complaining the other day that they got their health insurance bill for next year, and lo and behold, not vaccinated, $1,500 more than he paid this year, because of him not being vaccinated. And this is where it's going to end up, I think.
Good.
Laura,
Good. Go ahead.
Laura, you as a healthcare advocate, is this a way to go with this, do you think?
Well, I know many immunosuppressed people that have barely left their houses in the past year or so. And so I think it's time that we flip it, that if you're not vaxxed, you have to stay at home and everybody else gets to go out and live their lives.
I find it interesting. I was listening to one of the right wing, this bongo guy, who evidently is still struggling with COVID and thanking his audience for sending all of their support and all their thanks. And I'm going, why would you listen to a guy who's telling you don't go get vaccinated while he's been struggling with this for a while? This is not new. Why would you listen to somebody who is right before your very eyes struggling more than they have to just to keep a talking point? It's bizarre.
I don't know if you know this about me, Rick, but I have these abilities. I'm telepathetic. So I can tell when people are really lame. And my telepathetic abilities really turn into high gear whenever I hear these stories about people who, are hearing somebody with long haul coughing their head off and then saying, oh, I'm still not going to get vaccinated.
What drives me crazy is I'm sick and tired of seeing every other day in the daggone, funeral home services where they say so-and-so went home to be with the Lord. Be upfront and honest about it. So-and-so was stupid, didn't want to listen to the science, and got COVID and died. I have no pity for those people. You know what? Laura Packard is a stage 4 cancer survivor. And, she's doing everything in her power to stay healthy and do what's right. And it is not right for somebody to jeopardize her safety because they're an absolute jackass.
I'm right there with you. And this is where I keep coming back to. At some point, capitalism is going to have to figure this out. Employers are going to be, I've said, look, if you get it at work, you file a workers' comp suit. If you get it in school, maybe you got to file some kind of a lawsuit. I have a friend right now whose daughter is going through some lung issues that are linked possibly to COVID. And you go, because someone didn't want their kid to wear a mask, now my friend's kid has got to suffer. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And it's angering that what is simple. I had someone call the other night and say that, so if we lose 2 or 3% of the people, so what? Old people die. It's that kind of flippant response that drives me just absolutely angrily insane.
Yeah, and those same people want to go to the elderly people and ask them for their votes too.
Yeah. These are Republicans who are, basically telling their people don't get vaccinated. And the people who are going to die are primarily going to be their people who are unvaccinated. So, again, all of these folks who keep saying, don't do the right thing, like you're killing your own people. So,
and it isn't just seniors. I was just reading a story today about how hundreds of thousands of American children have lost their primary caregivers. So, whether their caregiver was their parents or a grandparent or, hundreds of thousands of American children have been traumatized for life, losing their parents, their grandparents. And it's still not enough to get people vaccinated.
Look, where I'm from, I'm seeing people that are in their 30s and 40s that are strong folks that, we just buried a guy the other day that's a pretty good face in the community, like 47 years old. I mean, this is killing everybody. Do the right thing. Get vaccinated.
At the same time, I was going to say that, all of the kids that have lost their parents, Rich and I know a lot about what the opioid epidemic looks like in our state. You've got a ton of children who have either been taken out of their home or who have lost family members, their primary caregiver, because of the opioid epidemic. So you add that to all the COVID deaths, and it's just like, oh my God, we have a lot of children that are going to need help.
We have a lot of children that need stuff. We've got to take a quick break right here. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1912. That was the day the Anaconda Copper Company instituted its rustling card system at its mines in Butte, Montana. The company used the rustling cards in 2 ways. First, as a work permit, and then as a way to keep track of miners. A miner looking for work would first have to apply for a card. Miners had to present information about citizenship status, English literacy skills, work history, and 2 years of employer references. Once the card was approved, the miners would then be allowed to apply for work. The Butte Miners Union charged that it was the company's way of blacklisting those who had quit, been fired, or known as union militants. By 1917, the Metal Mine Workers Union and the IWW added that the company was looking to nip agitation in the bud. They alleged employers were holding on to cards or denying them altogether for no reason. According to historian Paul Brissenden, both unions maintained the company was looking to, quote, punish those who were at one time active in the socialist administration of Butte Mayor Lewis J. Duncan, to prevent the Socialist Party from again securing a foothold in Butte, to strengthen the hands of the more conservative unions, and to to curb the industrial unionism of the IWW and Metal Mine Workers Union. The company asserted its right to keep out its enemies out of the mines, alleging they presented a danger to mine safety. But the unions shot back, stating the blacklist meant the hiring of untrained, inexperienced workers who presented the real danger. Brissenden notes that many union radicals continued to work in the mines despite the card system. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So big day in the Supreme Court this week. And look, nothing surprising here as our Supreme Court, the 6-3 corporate Supreme Court, heard the case from Mississippi that is going to overturn Roe. I have no doubt that this is where they're going to end up, and I don't think very many other people doubt that this will happen. The question then, what happens afterwards? But some of the things that have been coming out that I'm struggling with are this kind of mentality that, oh, well, we're gonna have more people to adopt, and it's gonna be this wonderful utopia. There's gonna be more babies. Kind of struggling. And here to share some thoughts on, well, where the court may go. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've missed something. But here to share some thoughts on where the court may go, I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris, reporter at RawStory, Laura Packard, stage 4 cancer survivor and healthcare advocate, and Rich Ojeda, No Dems Left Behind, national spokesperson. Guys, thanks so much for sticking around for me. So let's start with you, Sarah. Thoughts on what happened in the Supreme Court?
It was really hard to listen to, and I kind of have moved on to the point in my head for what this is going to look like after. It's so frustrating because you heard Amy Coney Barrett was the one who was asking so much about the adoption issue. And it's like Amy doesn't know that the U.S. is one of the leading countries of infant mortality and one of the most dangerous industrialized countries of the world, where giving birth is really, really dangerous. And some of that is because of healthcare access. Some of that is, from a whole bunch of other issues. But, this idea that we're going to force women to give birth and risk their lives now is something that's really scary to me. Yeah. And we're just going to paint over it like, oh, but now we're going to have all of these babies that everybody can adopt. The problem is that nobody's adopting them now. We have quite a few of them, and they're kids, who are stacked to the roof in foster homes and in scary places with a whole bunch of other families that aren't theirs. And I mean, come on, guys. I think Amy Coney Barrett's the only one who has an adopted child. Where's the rest of these, Republican justices with their adoptions? When are they going to start fostering some kids?
It's a good question. Laura, your thoughts?
Abortion, if the Supreme Court rules to demolish Roe versus Wade, abortion will become illegal in a whole bunch of states that already have laws on the books, like states you wouldn't necessarily expect, like Wisconsin and my home state of Michigan. It would be illegal. So half the country could lose access to abortion services unless they have the money to travel. But also, if you look at some of these states, Texas and Mississippi, that are filing these lawsuits, these are states that refuse to expand Medicaid to their poorest people. So they don't give a hoot about the poor people in their states. They don't care about the mothers. They only care about this idea of these kids that somebody will magically pay for and take care of, even though they refuse to provide health care for the parents or even basic social services for healthy, stable families.
No, and this is where I'm at right now. I mean, you look at the Build Back Better plan. There's money for early childhood education. There's money for child care. There's money to help families to keep kids out of poverty. There's all of this stuff to help families, and yet none of the pro-life folks, none of the Republicans are jumping on board. So let's say you did add all of these children who you brought to term and forced out. What would you do with them?
I mean, here's the other thing that a lot
earlier. There's already hundreds of thousands of American children that have lost their caregivers during the COVID epidemic. So you're compounding the issue of all these parentless children and the costs it take to support them and their mental and emotional needs.
A lot of folks forget too how expensive it is to actually give birth. You're talking about $30,000 to $50,000 if it is a normal birth that's either vaginal or even a C-section, I think is when you start getting more expensive. But that's if everything goes right. If you start having problems, if the kid has problems, if it's premature, like you're looking at what, $80,000 to $100,000? Who's going to pay for that? I mean, if you have all of these people who are forced to give birth, that's an unfunded mandate as far as I'm concerned. And this is the same court who voted down the Obamacare as being an unfunded mandate. So who's going to start paying for all these kids being born?
No, it's an excellent point. And I go back to, myself. I grew up, my mother raised me by herself. I don't know who my sperm donor was. Don't even know his name. But there's got to be some law to go along with this to make sure that kids don't grow up in poverty like I did and have to experience the kind of childhood that I grew up in. I personally am not in favor of abortion, but it should be safe and legal. I don't want my daughters to have to grow up in the world that my mother grew up in, having a friend who had to go to Kentucky to get a botched backroom abortion that ended up costing her life. Those horror stories of the past, I don't want for my children. I want what Clinton said, safe, rare, and legal. That's what we should be moving for, and moving to a society where people want to bring children into this world and have the ability to raise them and get the education, the health care, the future that they need instead of this. This seems insane to me. Rich, go ahead.
14 states immediately become illegal for abortion if the Supreme Court votes to do away with Roe v. Wade. Also understand that if right now our Supreme Court, that it's supposed to be an organization that focuses solely on the law. If the Supreme Court now becomes conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, then they become nothing more than what we have on the House floor right now. And if that takes place, and if they allow this to basically be overturned, then basically other things can be put in the crosshairs too. So if you guys want to go down this path and say, okay, we're going to use this to get rid of abortion, we can go down this same path and get rid of guns. There's all kinds of ways. You want to open this door and get this going? By all means. You don't realize it, but you're cutting your throat. You're cutting your throat.
But this brings me to what Clarence Thomas brought up, because Clarence Thomas, one of the original intent, folks, if it's not written in the Constitution, it doesn't exist. He would argue with you that the Second Amendment is in place, that you can't touch the guns, but because they said you have the right to an abortion in the Constitution, that you don't explicitly have that right. Do you buy any of those arguments? Do you buy that argument, anyone?
Well-regulated militia. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, there you go.
The word well-regulated is in the Second Amendment. So let's regulate the hell out of it.
See,
right?
my problem, and this is where I come back to, for me, the Constitution is what the rights that we give away. If it's not in the Constitution that says that I give up that right, I then have all of the other rights. So his argument to me is specious at best. And honestly, to lead us in a direction that is going to lead us down the wrong path. I should have the right to every bit of freedom, regardless, in my view, unless it is specifically enumerated. Or am I off base?
Let me say for this here, this is the Democrats failing fighting. They're not, we sit here and we allow the Republican Party to force feed us Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett. They force fed that to us. And that's how come they got a 6-3. The Democrats want to sit back and play nice all the time, while the Republicans do anything and everything they can to win. And that's what's really wrong, because the Republicans don't care to do it in your face blatantly, and the Democrats want to play the nice guy. And that's why we're in this situation that we're in right now.
Well, let's talk about this then, because clearly if it does get overturned, if this then becomes something that is going to be reverted back to the states, do the Democrats have the ability to pass a law to make it legal? I mean, Susan Collins has said that, she's in favor that there should be a right to an abortion. Susan Collins, who I would argue is probably responsible for a good part of this, for putting Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Gorsuch on the court. Thoughts?
Well, the House did pass the House did pass a law protecting abortion, and it's just the Senate with the filibuster, they haven't moved on it. So our senators have to decide whether an arcane procedural quirk is more important than women's lives, because it's going to come down to that. They're going to have to make that choice.
And that's the thing they didn't ask Susan Collins about. Is she said, oh well, I'd be fine voting for this, but she didn't say whether or not she would vote to bring down the filibuster to do it. And I think that's an important question we need to ask her.
And again, you look at where the filibuster is. I mean, there are so many things we should be doing on voting rights, now on Roe versus Wade, on I would argue the PRO Act. At this point, something has to be done, and yet we come back to Manchin and Sinema seem to be holding things up.
I hate that. I despise these people. I despise them. There's so many things that they really need to be doing right now. But for Joe Manchin, it's bucking for power later on down the road, and I don't know what the heck Sinema is thinking. But I mean, we are in a world of hurt right now. We should be absolutely getting things done, and they are allowing the Republican Party to absolutely obstruct and get away with it, and it's an absolutely shame. And I hate to say it, but I text Joe Manchin literally every day, and I tell him some horrible things, because I cannot stand what he's done to this country.
So the question then becomes, once this happens, where do you see the next moves? This obviously goes back to the states. Does this, as some of my Democratic strategist friends, they seem to believe that this is going to help Democrats by invigorating the local electorate, getting women back, more engaged in the political arena. Anybody buy in that argument?
I do. I believe it is going to absolutely, and I think it already is. It is infuriating women out there. And you know what? It drives me crazy when I see women that are on their side, that basically says, sure, you can control my body. But I'll tell you right now, I believe that these are the type of things that will absolutely create a firestorm against the Republican Party. They talk about the fact that we are probably going to lose the House. And I sit here and I think to myself, how? How can we lose a House? First and foremost, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Trainwreck Green, these people are absolute jackaloons and should not be there. But goodness gracious, the things that these Republicans are doing should infuriate people and make them, without a doubt, vote against. If the Republicans get away with suppressing the light brown to dark brown vote, and that's what they're trying to do, but I think that's the only way these people could come out on top, is if they blatantly cheat in the eyes of everybody.
I'd love to see some state ballot initiatives that address, maybe they're not talking about it within the language of choice specifically, but just the idea of the government can't decide your healthcare decisions, which, that could be mandating a COVID vaccine, and that could be, forcing you to have a child. And I think that's how you frame it, because honestly, what is the difference between forcing somebody to get a vaccine and forcing somebody to have a child, other than $50,000?
Excellent point. Laura, you want to jump in?
Well, and also pregnancy, childbirth can kill you. But I think that this has the potential at turning out the kinds of voters that took our rights for granted, that thought that this was settled law, because certainly people like Susan Collins said it was settled law. It was nobody was ever going to touch Roe versus Wade. Sure.
Yeah.
But we saw in 2018 that many people, women especially, were so angry at Trump's election that, again, maybe some of us had taken for granted, didn't vote or voted third party, but then saw our rights being taken away. And there was a huge push to the ballot box, and we could see that next year. Now,
the question that I have is you look at this new Texas law that just took effect that is restricting women's access to the abortive medication. They've actually put a law in that doctors can't send it. You have to go to the doctor to get the Plan B pill or whatever medication they have. And that if they send it out via courier or mail, could spend up to 10 years, 2 years in jail, $10,000 fine. And it only applies to doctors. So women have to come to the doctor. May I have my pill, please? This leads me to go, once Roe goes down, Griswold's not far behind. And I got to ask, women, what do you think of that?
Scary.
It's horrifying.
Man. I mean, I can think of, there's starting to be a movement of travel nurses. And I wonder if Texas is going to ban that, because if you have the travel nurses that are basically doing house calls, can they do the Plan B pill? Because that would be my first move to okay, how can we make this work for people? That would be one decision. I think the ballot initiatives are another. We're going to have to start funding organizations that will help pay for women's flights to places like Colorado and surprisingly Kansas.
Well, let me stop you there. What do you do with a state like Texas who has these bounty hunters who, if you had an abortion or if you did something, now they're going to turn you in? Will we see states coming around and saying, well, if you go to another state and have an abortion, we're still going to hold you liable?
Let's test that in court. I'm ready for that to go to court because I don't think it's going to stand up.
I'm looking at this Supreme Court and I'm going, I don't know. Nothing in our court system today makes me certain of anything, because we were told, John Roberts, when he was being confirmed, I'm going to call balls and strikes. I believe in decided law. Yet he threw a boot out, and I see Roe going. I don't see any precedent as sacred at this moment.
No, I think you're right. That's one of the problems that we're having, and that's what people should be worried about.
We are in most certainly scary times, especially around this issue. And I hope, Rich, you're right. I hope this does bring women out in large numbers in the next election. I hope the Republicans the dog who caught the car, I hope they start kicking that dog in the behind. Not that I'm advocating for kicking dogs, just Republican dogs.
Airborne.
Although I'm sure I'm going to take email rick@thericksmithshow.com. I will take all of the angry emails, because maybe in that vein, I do deserve it. So last thought on this, real quick, yes or no? Does it get overturned, Rich?
I think it's going to.
Sarah?
Yeah.
Lauren?
Yeah.
It seems like we are all in agreement that, well, this could be the end of it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Tell me what you think. Good idea, bad idea, and then, well, if it reverts to the states, what then happens? You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, thericksmithshow.com, that's where you go to get the podcast. Make sure you check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1966. That was the day that the registered nurses of the Youngstown General Duty Nurses Association walked out of their jobs. Nursing could be a grueling profession, with long hours of physical labor for low pay. In Youngstown, the nurses were frustrated because there were inconsistencies in pay. Some recently hired nurses made more than those who had been working for years. Part-time nurses did not receive the same wage increases as full-time employees. They also did not feel that they had enough say in delivering quality care for their patients. When they asked to meet with the hospital's executive director to discuss their concerns, the nurses were rebuffed. They then contacted the Ohio Nurses Association union and asked for help. Youngstown was a steel town, a union town, and the nurses were ready to join in the local labor movement. At first, the Youngstown Hospital Association refused to bargain with the union. But when the nurses threatened to walk out, negotiations began. After 2 months of talking at the bargaining table, major issues remained unsettled, including pay and union recognition. Fed up, the nurses called for a mass resignation. 305 of the 433 nurses turned in their resignations. 2/3 of them were part-time nurses. They formed informational picket lines outside the hospitals. A federal mediator was brought in to settle the dispute. In the end, the nurses won significant gains. They received a more than 25% raise over 2 years. A grievance procedure was established for the first time, but most importantly, the union gained recognition and the right to bargain for better wages, hours, and conditions for the nurses and their patients. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So lots of fun this week, obviously. I think my favorite story, my state, Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz is going to be running for Senate. I don't actually know that he lives in the state, but who cares? He's a famous guy with a lot of money, and you know he doesn't care about those kids, so might actually get some Republican votes. As I remember him saying, we should open schools because it'll only kill 2-3% of the kids. It's well worth it. This coming from a doctor, and look, he's a respected doctor. But it doesn't mean he's going to be a very good politician or someone who even cares about you or your kids. Here to share some thoughts on, the insanity that's going to bring. Cannot wait to see the primary here in PA and across the country. Our all-star panel, Rich Ojeda, No Dems Left Behind, Laura Packard, stage 4 cancer survivor and health care advocate, and our good friend, Sarah Burris, reporter at RawStory. Guys, thanks so much for sticking around.
Hey, boy. Mm-hmm.
So thoughts on the Oprah favorite, Dr. Oz? And my first question, does Oprah endorse him?
No.
Hell no.
No. Let me tell you something. Fetterman is going to win that seat. Dr. Oz is from New Jersey. And yeah, I mean, I would rather trust Kevorkian with my children.
The thing you were saying about how he wanted to put kids back in school, he's made that statement in April of 2020, when we saw the explosion of COVID cases. I think May and June were the top until we started getting into the Christmas season for 2020. I mean, good God, what an idiot. How many children would be dead because of that guy? And, but maybe his campaign slogan is going to be like, vote for me and you'll lose 10 pounds or something.
Kill them all. Let God sort them out.
There you go.
Doesn't that seem to be the mantra? I mean, there are some, and there were a bunch of politicians who said, look, there's one guy from Texas said, look, I'm 60-some years old. I've lived long enough. If I get it, so what? There's this fatalist mentality. And look, I'm not immune to it either. I'm a believer in when it's my time, it's my time. But I'm sure, and I think, you as a soldier, Rich, I'm sure you kind of feel the same way. But you didn't jump up and say to the enemy, hey, over here. You ducked behind a car when somebody was shooting at you.
We said when it's your time, it's your time. But we continued wearing our bulletproof equipment and driving in up-armored vehicles and things like that. This is an absolute shame. First off, if you want to sit here and scream that you don't want to get vaccinated, fine. Don't go to the hospital when you get sick. Stay home and you suck it up. Handle business.
Also, I'm sure that his kids were in a fancy New Jersey private school and not at risk. So it's easy enough for him to make these proclamations for other people, whereas his money insulates him and his family. And plus, I'm sure he is vaccinated, regardless of whatever nonsense that he is pushing out there. Like if he's offering hydroxychloroquine handouts at his campaign events, he himself is vaccinated.
Yep.
Yeah. This guy.
Where do you go? Where do you go from there? Where do you go where, hey, come to my campaign rally, and the instead of a bowl of punch and some cookies, there's ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Where and then of course, diapers for afterwards.
You go somewhere else. You go somewhere else.
Go talk to Fetterman. That's what you should do.
Yeah. Fetterman.
No, I'm a big John Fetterman fan. I've known John for, got to be now 15 years. And this is a guy who I think is, he cares about people. He wants to move things in the right direction. I'm a big fan, and I hope he wins the primary. Going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But here's the thing. This is what gets me. You've got, political leaders, and you've got, heaven forbid, Dr. Oz becomes a senator. You've got people who don't care about anybody else. And I look at this new book out by Mark Meadows that says that Trump tested positive for COVID on September 26th before the debates of last year, 3 days before the Cleveland debate. So he tests positive, and right when he tests positive, straight into a meeting with Gold Star families he goes, and then obviously to the debate. And then now you've got Meadows saying, well, Trump's right, my book is fake news. Is this to make us think that nothing is real, up is really down, that there's no truth, there are no facts? I mean, is this that, or is it really he did these things? Rich, I want to start with you.
Donald Trump did those things. Donald Trump does not care about nobody at all. He cares about himself. He don't even care about his family other than Ivanka. That's the only person he cares about. I mean, sadly, this is what took place. This is one of the reasons why I am so excited when Liz Cheney has basically said that they're going to put him on the stand and they're going to question him and they're going to hold him accountable to every single word. So when they ask him, did you test positive before you went there? And he says, no, well, that's a lie, and they're going to hammer him for that because Donald Trump does not know how to tell the truth. And I hope that they put him on the stand, and I hope that it eviscerates him.
Yeah, I look at this this woman who was someone in his administration. This Alyssa Farah. Evidently, she told Jake Tapper the other day that she was stunned that Donald Trump would do this. She said very few things shocked me. And this revelation shocked me. She said it demonstrates a flagrant lack of regard for public health and the well-being of others. She goes into that there were staffers who were pregnant, staffers who had are cancer survivors, staffers who were over 65, and yet she was shocked that he would put all of those people at risk. And I couldn't help but think, who dropped you on your head? How is it possible that you could possibly be surprised by this guy, who he is? Because this is what his supporters love about him. This story for you and me and for folks who aren't Trump fans will go, oh my gosh, how could he do this? For his supporters, this is why they love him.
Well, that manure is plenty fragrant. But from what Rich was saying, Trump does not care about you. If Trump was next to Kate Winslet on this piece of bark after the Titanic was sinking, Kate Winslet is a goner because he does not care about anybody other than himself. If it's him and Ivanka on a float in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Ivanka is gone. So anybody
He'll
that
be
thinks
sad about it, but she's still gone.
Yeah, anybody who thinks that Trump cares about you, no, he does not.
I will remember you.
You'll be alive in my memory. Good luck. Happy bubbling. No, but this is the sad reality of the moment we're in, because there are so many people who have this revisionist history of what the former guy did, and they're trying to rewrite the history that no, he didn't downplay the virus. He's not responsible for all of the lack of response and all of that. And they want to push this alternative narrative that, sorry, he was at fault. And even Dr. Oz, to his credit, did say they got it wrong.
Yeah, in his actual campaign ad, he had the guts to say that they got it wrong. And that's why I think that Dr. Oz is probably not long for this race. Even if he does win, he's going to end up being on the wrong side of Donald Trump because, to be real, like, Dr. Oz does sort of believe in science, and Trump believes in Trump science. You know, whatever helps Trump, that's his science. And so if he ends up in a situation where it's him or Donald Trump, then, you know, how is he going to respond to that without completely destroying his credibility?
Yeah, it's an interesting moment. We're definitely in interesting times, and it's one of those things that makes you go, will someone hold him accountable for this? Now, Glenn Kirshner, one of the guys that I follow on Twitter, a former prosecutor, said that he believes that Trump can be prosecuted for this stuff. Do you have any hope, any thought that the Department of Justice or anybody will hold Trump accountable for the actions of the last administration?
I think that they are. I really believe that they have to. I think for this country to heal, we're going to have to hold him accountable. I think that he's going to be the first president that we're going to see in handcuffs. And I really, really hope that this happened because he has severely damaged our democracy, our standing in the world. It's just the level. There is no bottom to Donald Trump. If you think he can't go no lower, he will surprise you every time.
Now, David K. Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winning investigative reporter, he's got a new book coming out, and I'll pitch that, The Big Cheat, How Donald Trump Fleeced America and Enriched Himself and His Family. He's put out in his book that Trump enriched himself and the Trump organization to about $1.7 billion in revenue. Think all those golf trips, all the golf carts for the Secret Service, all the rooms, all the meals, hey, come, let's have the G6 at Doral. And I got to wonder, is any of this counted with all of the foreign dignitaries that stayed in his hotels to curry favor? But they're saying $1.7 billion in revenue that he lined his pockets with. Do we have to look at this? Is this something that should be looked at?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I think too, that book, I'm going through all of it because I bought it already. And he's got a list of how much Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner also benefited.
It's like $600 million, right? It's
a ridiculous amount of money. And yeah. They kind of, they sort of have been trying to lie about it, and give their financial disclosures late and like this whole thing. And they, what did they do? It's like something where they say it's not, you have to swear under penalty of perjury that it's true, and they have done something different with it. So it's not even accurate what they filed.
If you're going to make that much money, then you had better solve peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, no kidding.
And solve all the crises that we've got. But here's the thing. I'm not surprised by this. In fact, on Inauguration Day, I predicted this and worse. Mm-hmm. And I think we all did. No one needed a crystal ball to look at Donald Trump taking the oath of office and knowing that the theft, the grift, the amount of fleecing that was going to happen and that was coming, wouldn't be enormous. I think we all understood that. I just don't think we thought where we would be in the place where when he left office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anybody that's been following Trump knows exactly what he's about. You don't have to buy a Trump steak to realize there's no beef. But I think that what shocked maybe some of us is that nothing was done to hold him accountable. And that's why we can't just turn the other cheek. This can't be like 2008 when the economy collapsed and none of the Wall Street bankers ever went to jail. We have to do something about this or it will happen again and worse.
Because we've done nothing, that's why you've seen a rise in the Marjorie Trainwreck Greens and the Lauren Boeberts. These people know that if they get elected and go to Washington, D.C., they don't have to push legislation that helps their people. They just got to go there and make a lot of noise and get a lot of people looking at them, and apparently that's all you have to do. We need to get people back in Washington, D.C. that go there with the mission to bring funding, to bring capabilities back to their constituents so that it can elevate their lives. And until we get back to that, it's nothing but a daggone show, a freak show, if you ask me.
Where Dr. Oz would fit right in. And this is the thing, and I agree with you, Laura, that we have got to start perp walking people, which is why, I'm hoping the January 6th commission starts doing more of this. And I'm a little happy to see that you're going to get some folks who are going to testify, even if Jeffrey Clark's going to plead the fifth. I wouldn't mind an entire parade of people saying, I'm going to plead the fifth, because that means that even they know they did something wrong, that even they know that what they did was criminal, and you keep digging into that.
Yeah, the whole part of the Fifth Amendment is you're saying, if I give you an answer, I will incriminate myself, which means that you have just incriminated yourself. And I don't understand why, a lot of folks don't, are willing to get on the stand and say that. It seems like a really big bad PR move, but again, you got to fight the subpoena, and thank goodness we've got a Justice Department who's finally willing to put people, hold people in contempt of Congress for it. And that gave me hope. That was the one thing where I was like, okay, so he is sort of taking this seriously now, and he did impanel a grand jury. So it made me wonder what other grand juries there could be out there.
Yeah, I wish they were doing this more public, though. This doing things behind closed doors sends the wrong message, because the right wing is spinning this, as fast as they can, that there's nothing here, that the Democrats are just on a witch hunt, when the reality is you should be watching these people in real time, sweating bullets, pleading the fifth, begging to get out of that seat, instead of behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we need a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in the United States, so we know exactly what happened and who did it and where we go from here.
Yeah. Last question I want to get from you guys. On the topic of the former guy, he's all upset at British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, because Boris says he's going to go all in on wind power. And, Donald went nuts because he thinks it's ridiculous. It's going to kill all of the birds, according to Donald Trump. And it's the most expensive form of power for Trump. Are you surprised that he's still whining on these lies and these nonsense statements?
Well, once Donald Trump said that windmills cause cancer, speaking as a cancer survivor, that's not how it works, Donald.
Ear cancer. Like, that's not even a thing, is it? There's no such thing as ear cancer. Like, what is it? Do you develop a tumor from your wax? I don't understand. And do you solve it by sticking a Q-tip in? I don't know. But the idea that he suddenly is some sort of environmentalist who cares about birds is laughable, too. The number one killer of birds is house cats. So I don't see him out there, holding up a sign that says "Down with Furry."
Don't tell me how much you love the birds, and both your sons are photographed holding dead cats and the tails of elephants and zebras. Get out of here. Yeah. Get out of my face with that garbage.
Actually, surprisingly, the number one killer of birds, I found this out according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, windows. Windows in your house, the number one killer of birds. They say that some 600 million birds a year are killed by windows. Only about 230,000 are killed by wind turbines. So there you go. A little bit of something. Guys, as always, I appreciate your time, your thoughts, your expertise. Thanks so much.
Everyone.
You bet.
Our good friends, Sarah Burris from RawStory. Make sure you check out our work, rawstory.com. Also, Laura Packard, healthcare advocate, stage 4 cancer survivor, and our good friend, Rich Ojeda, national spokesperson, No Dems Left Behind. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Something we said got under your skin, on your nerves. I'd love to hear about it. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you get the podcast. You can follow us on Twitter @RickSmithShow. Do the Facebook thing. We do some there. YouTube, subscribe, share, all of that. We're just about everywhere. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here next time. And this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1946. That was the day a general strike erupted in Oakland, California. Workers, mostly women, had been on strike for a month at 2 downtown department stores. Teamsters honored their picket lines and refused to make deliveries. Infuriated owners of Hastings and Conn's demanded their merchandise and turned to the city for help. And on this day, police assembled early in the morning to clear the streets of picketers. They attacked strikers, forcing them off the street and setting up a perimeter of machine guns to escort scab delivery trucks through the line. One striker recalled, "I was black and blue for 6 months" from their clubs. Outraged truck drivers, bus drivers, and streetcar operators all stopped, got out of their vehicles, and joined the strikers, quickly filling downtown Oakland. By the end of the day, the city was completely shut down. 142 AFL unions called for a labor holiday in support of the strikers, and now 130,000 workers were on strike in solidarity. UAW member Stan Weir recalled that it was the bus drivers, many just returned from the war, who led the strike. The streets that night had a carnival-like atmosphere. War vets led a march to City Hall to demand the resignation of the mayor and city council for their attempts to break the strike. The general strike quickly forced the administration to stop the scab herding. But local labor leaders were divided over what some considered a near insurrection and called the strike off 54 hours later. The retail workers were left to fight on their own for another 5 months. But for a few days, workers got a taste of their own power. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to labor